connected with somebody if they've been in multiple locations with them. So if we went out and we spent 6 hours at one bar just talking to each other, I would rather spend 2 hours, 2 hours, and 2 hours at 3 different bars.
All right, so we're going to get to some of the high level, like where Cartel stands right now. Obviously, they were just designated like terrorist organizations. You're going to have some thoughts there, but I want to get through like to show people how deeply ingrained you were in this world. So you start doing these drops for this guy that were all random things. Could be at banks, could be meeting a random person in some other country, could, whatever. You start developing relationships, though, on the other end. Sometimes these were just regular people in suits, I would imagine. Other times you're like, oh, this is a serious player in the cartel itself.
Right. Yeah.
What does that look like? Like, what was your goal? Like, are you like, I want to meet a person at this level in the cartel and then become friends with them? Or was it more kind of same thing, like, let's see what we fall into, where the chips fall?
So the level that I was trying to be at was more of the layering level. So not that would be the integration level, trying to put cash into the banking system. I wanted to be more at the level where I'm distancing it from the original account through corporations all over the world or through trade deals or whatever, so that the money could be usable, right? Because I can't really influence the things that my organization was interested in, right? Like that we talked about in the beginning while I'm muling this cash around. And so I needed to move more into the layering jobs of it, which, luckily I was able to do fairly quickly.
You're also trying to get into the scenario, once again, where you're within these organizations like the cartels, so that you then have access to have to go to other places.
Right.
So I'm just trying, because this is such a hard world for me to picture not being in it. But like, are they giving you, they're like, all right, we're going to need you, I'm going to paint a hypothetical here. We're going to need you to uncover some secret arms deals happening in fucking Serbia. So we need to figure out how to get you to Serbia. Meaning, we've identified this group of people within the cartels that deals in that area. And by the way, you're currently dropping off money to this group of people who knows those guys. So you're going to get through this guy to that guy.
That's actually pretty close. So if you think of the money laundering world, it's all jurisdictionally dynamic, right? Like offshore banking.
Yeah.
Right? You have places that are good jurisdictions for trusts. You have places that are good jurisdictions for the banking, right? So like, let's say Nevis and Belize, which are, close. You want to do a trust in Nevis, you want to do the bank account in Belize, just because of their laws. But there are places like this, Channel Islands, Luxembourg, all over the world, Hong Kong, right?
Yeah.
So you're trying to steer it in that direction by saying, well, there's a reason that I want to use Luxembourg, because I've got a hook up there. Like, you don't get asked a lot of questions like that, especially when it's a technical job. So what I mean is, if I'm having this discussion with, say, somebody in the cartel and they are not a finance person, I'm going to so overload them with like finance and tech jargon that they just don't want to listen to me anymore. They don't want to ask questions. They're just bored.
Cállate, way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're trying to prey on that to keep them from looking, what's happening.
Kind of like, it's a similar psychology to like the charlatan angle.
Mm-hmm.
Hit them with a lot of terms, bore them to tears, or make them believe that you know what the fuck you're talking about, and just be like, I don't want to deal with it anymore.
Yep.
All right, so how long before you actually got somewhere where you're like, well, now I got the access I need?
So maybe like the year with him.
Mm-hmm.
Another 6 months after that, it was pretty close. So a year
Why?
and a half.
What happened?
Just because of the connections that he had provided in places where, you're almost taking these people and leapfrogging over them a little bit, like you're friends with this person and you get really close and they introduce you to somebody who's more helpful, and then this starts to go down and the new one, and you're just jumping ahead pretty quickly through these relationships. And as long as you circle back around to each person and say, like, I'm taking care of you, I'm still thinking about you, I'm just traveling a lot.
What a slut.
Yeah.
Send him a postcard.
Yeah. Yeah. You're the only one for me. I wish I was with you. Yeah.
And what, like, was there I know you can't like say exactly who or necessarily the exact place or everything, but was there a guy you got to where you're like, bingo, we're
Yes.
there?
Yes.
What did that look like?
This was an extremely high level person in a very well known international bank.
And what was the
one of the
context of you getting
top
him?
10 employees at the bank in the world.
And he was on the take knowingly.
He eventually became on the take, yes.
Oh, he wasn't when you got to him?
No.
Were you the guy that convinced him to go on the take?
Yes.
All right, how'd you get to this guy?
So it was actually a parallel operation that I'll try to say as little about this as possible. He came up,
It's just you and me. Don't worry about
to
it.
the yeah, right, yeah. So he came up as a person of interest to the U.S. intelligence community at one point to be developed for something
Brian, go use the other one.
completely different than this, and that didn't work out. But we knew of this individual, and so this person got promoted fairly quickly in their bank, and so we decided to take a run at them as like a secondary, like, well, we couldn't use him for what we wanted, but maybe Matthew can use him for the money stuff, and he was amenable to it, and eventually started doing what he didn't think he was working for the U.S. government. He thought that he was enabling money laundering.
All right, take me there. I want to know, like, first of all, so that I understand, when they're making the whole thing about him where they're like, we think that's a targetable guy, you have not made contact with him yet, have you?
Correct.
Okay.
No.
So now they're like, well, Matthew's in a place where he actually can make contact with the guy because of other people he knows.
Mm-hmm.
So without revealing the bank or the place or the guy or the exact job he had, we just know he was high up. That's important enough. How did you make contact with him? You just like walk into his office and be like, hey, what's up, bro?
So his bank had already been being used by some of the people I knew in the money laundering world, the criminal side of it at this point. And so the branch specifically, we didn't know if he knew that it was working that way, but I already had a reason to go there. And so we just started focusing on that branch and that location more and more and more. And so eventually it goes to creating that, what I called that bump, or that perceived serendipitous encounter. And I walked up to him in a hotel lobby bar and struck up a conversation, and then eventually made a friendship.
And one of the things that pisses me off in the movies about these types of conversations is that they're limited by time. So they have to, the scene's going to be 3 minutes.
Right.
From walking into the bar to suddenly getting the ask and getting it done, and suddenly, boom, and then it cuts to a new scene. But I always think to myself, I'm like, those motherfuckers had to be in the bar for another 3 hours. What did they talk about? And how'd they get there that fast? Mm-hmm. You're obviously not moving that fast. So I just want you to kind of show us how you would do this. Like, you walk into that bar, is it 5 o'clock, like happy hour type deal?
This was in the evening, maybe around 7. Yeah.
All right.
Maybe.
You don't have a goal of like, well, I want to get them by 8 o'clock. But
No.
how does the conversation start, and what types of psychological tactics are you using to get him towards that area where you might be able to push him over the edge?
Sure. Step one is I hope that he starts the conversation with me, not the other way around. And so I'm going to do things that essentially force that to happen.
Like
this
what?
Gives him the illusion of free choice. So let's say I knew his favorite book, hypothetically from this research or something like that. And it was something that almost nobody ever reads, right? Just super unique to him. I might walk in like having just started it, something like that.
Whoa.
And then he's going to ask, and I can say like, well, I don't know much, about it. I just started it. Is it good? Like, you explain it to me, right? And I was just talking about something he loves to talk about at that point. And so that's one thing that can be done. The next is what we call a venue change, right? So people feel that they are more connected with somebody if they've been in multiple locations with them. So if we went out and we spent 6 hours at one bar just talking to each other, I would rather spend 2 hours, 2 hours, and 2 hours at 3 different bars, because your brain will make it seem like we've known each other longer and that we're closer.
That's true.
So things like that.
All right. So how did you, hypothetically, if he used his favorite book here, how'd you steer the conversation? Did it then naturally kind of get to, so what do you do? Kind of thing, and then that's where...
Yeah, the what do you do for a living, comes up pretty quickly in almost any conversation like this. And so you don't want to leak, even the cover of, right, like I'm a money launderer. Oh, he'd probably guess, what was happening at that point. And so the approach that I usually tried to take was being bad at whatever my supposed cover I was telling him was, right? So if I want him to come to the conclusion I'm a money launderer eventually, and I'm going to say, like, no, I'm a regular businessman, I do this, but I'm going to keep dropping stuff because he's in banking to where he's like, you know what? I think Matthew might be up to some shady shit, and he's just not telling me yet because we're not that close yet, right? So now it's that role reversal of he's trying to get it out of me. I eventually accidentally, leak this stuff, and then he feels validated. He was right. He knew it all along. And
do you plan that kind of thing ahead of time, though, exactly what those loose droppings are going to look like?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So you it's kind of without knowing what he's going to say, because it's a live conversation, it's rehearsed, like how you'll do it.
Yeah, so it would almost just be like talking points of, at some point in the conversation, when I feel it's right, I want to get these 3 things out. And maybe the conversation has a different direction. I'm like, I'm not going to drop any of this. This is not the night. This isn't, we'll just do it another time. Maybe I'm getting all green lights and I'm, let's just get them out there. But that is amazingly dependent on the feedback that you're getting from the person that you're working.
Now, are you like kind of lightly drinking this time and trying to get him to drink more?
I'm going with it.
You're going with it.
Yeah, and sometimes even dragging him into like a faster pace, right? Because people will try to keep up with you.
Yes.
So if I'm not getting him, if he's not going enough, I'm going to try to rush him with it.
And you trust yourself drunk?
Yeah.
Pretty good drunk.
It takes me quite a while. I have a physical lag to it compared to most people, but I'm also somebody who's experienced in trying to do these things while consuming alcohol at the same time. They used to do, like in the Cold War, they did these weird tricks like eating butter or something, cut the line in your stomach. Like that's all.
I was going to ask, like, does CIA have like a secret pill you can take before that suddenly like combats alcohol as it goes into your system?
I wish. No, but one thing to always remember about this is in this situation, I'm the magician, right? And so I know what to pay attention for. And this person just thinks this is just something that happened to me on a Wednesday. So they are already at a significant cognitive disadvantage in this exchange.
Did you change venues on them?
Yes.
How long into the conversation did that happen?
It was actually really, really quick the first night because the opening was there. It was too crowded and loud to speak to. And so I just kept acting like I couldn't hear what he was saying when he was trying to tell me about something that he was very passionate about.
You said, let's get out of here?
No, he asked. He said, hey, we can
like,
go
buy
across
me
the street.
dinner first. Relax, pause.
So we went up to his room,
Oh, you did go up to his room?
No. The gangbang wasn't until way later.
I was going to say, man. It's getting aggressive.
So he changed.
Would you suck a dick for the U.S. government?
Absolutely not. No.
I don't believe you. Continue.
I'll never do that again.
That was good.
You don't get paid that. I didn't get paid enough for that.
Pause. Anyway, yeah.
So he suggested a venue change, and it was only 2 in the evening, but it went very well.
And that was like a quieter bar or something?
It was just a quieter place, yeah.
And were you able to get, I forget if you said this at the beginning, were you able to get to the initial kind of ask or proposal on this first one?
No, not even close.
So, all right, so you had to lay the foundation. So how do you leave it with them? Like, oh, give me a call tomorrow. I really enjoyed myself. Thank you.
Yeah, you always, Shawnee knows all about this. You're always trying to set the stage for the next meeting, right? You always want to set that up.
It's like dating.
That's what I'm saying, though. You
whole
have
thing.
an advantage here.
No.
You're like, I'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah.
No, the whole human intelligence recruitment cycle, it's like dating. The whole thing, spot, assess, develop, recruit, handle, terminate. Each step is a different step in making a relationship with someone.
Yeah.
So you're always trying to you like them. They're checking the boxes. Just like you're swiping on an app, you're spotting someone. He spotted who he wanted. He's moving it to assessment. He's assessing, does he have the suitability and the access? Is he willing? Is he vulnerable? He's checking those boxes. Then he wants to move it to the monogamous relationship, right?
Yeah.
And then he's going to move it into, so that's development. Then he's going to move it into recruitment, which is like popping the question.
Or into where all my relationships had having to pay the other person
That's
eventually.
Right. That's right. How do you leave it with him after that first night, and like how do you get the second date?
Yeah, so it really is dependent on the person and what happens. But, coming up with commonalities, which I already had, I knew what the hobbies of this person were. And so I suggested at the end of the first night an event that I knew was already like a hobby of his. Said I would be in town a little bit longer because he had paid for the bill in this specific interaction. And so I said, would you let me return you the favor? If you're free, you could come to this event with me. And
Where'd you take him golfing?
no, not golfing.
Golfing.
I would have embarrassed the heck out of myself if it was golfing. So
That's okay though, because then they feel bad for you. That's a good way to pull them in. Like, I gotta play
He's
with
a
this guy.
natural.
I
Gotta
know.
play with this guy again. Poor thing.
It's like you hang out with spies.
Fucking suck. Yeah, you people won't get away from me. It's not helping me. I'll tell you that. It does make me like, I don't have to think like you do because my life's not that serious, but I do like think about how you guys have to think sometimes. I'm like, damn, I'm glad I'm not that. Because that would like I would be very, very hardwired to be very paranoid. Like if I were in your seat, something like that, I don't know what I would do.
I think for me, seeing
Xanax actually. But
Xanax milkshake.
yeah.
Let's keep the bars flowing. To me, seeing how easily people can be manipulated, was a little unnerving.
Yeah.
And now I take that with me just for the stuff that like we were talking about is I'm constantly checking my interactions with other people for indicators that they are attempting to manipulate me.
Right.
So it can be a little overwhelming when you're actually just trying to, be bros with somebody that's not trying to hurt you. But
Did you know after that first one that you had him? You didn't have him yet, but you knew you were going to get him?
I knew he was the type that we could get there most likely.
What made him the type?
He was very able to be influenced, and he was very quick to express being disgruntled against people that he should have had more loyalty to than me, having met me in one night. So, if I can get somebody on the first time I'm talking to him to talk shit about their best friend of 10 years, I can manipulate that person.
Okay. You said it took a while longer, though, to develop it, right? So it wasn't like at the next event. You're just making friends with the guy for a while. How long did it take before it started to get to the...
I don't know exactly, but months.
Months.
Yeah. Sometimes, this one was quick. These things can take years and years and years. So this one was very quick, but it was a matter of months.
And what was the moment like where you're like, boom, let's go?
I'm going to have to be careful about how I answer that because I don't want this to be a recognized thing. But so there's two stages to it. Once, when I knew that the person would compromise their work, security requirements for anything, for any amount of money, for any amount of reciprocity, it's going to happen eventually at that point. Like at that point, even though it was very small, I knew when the big ass came, it would be a yes. So that was the more significant part. And, chime in here, for me, the meeting where you do the big pitch, you want to almost be at a foregone conclusion. Like
100%.
This how this is going to go ahead of time.
You have to be. Because you're dropping cover, you have to be. If you're going to propose marriage, the answer is yes. Otherwise, you're dumb.
When you say dropping cover, though, you're not dropping cover, I work for CIA. You're dropping cover of that I'm not just this corporate guy. You kind of already knew that.
Yeah, I launder dirty money,
Right.
And you're a banker because, in the way that she's describing it, maybe the security service comes after you, the counterintelligence service. He could have called the cops on me, though.
That's right.
At this point and said,
That's right.
oh, you got me wrong. That's not my bag. And that would have been very bad.
Oh, so you gave him a bag.
Full of money.
Small bills cash. Large bills cash. And what was without revealing it for the operational purposes of people figuring out, were you trying to make him, were you at this point confidently or with prior permission speaking on behalf of a given cartel operation where you are trying to get this guy to be your cover to be able to do illegal activities at this banking institution?
So it would never be exposed to him at that level, right? Like I would never use the C word, the cartel word with him. You know, people like to feel like they have this blanket of security because you've only indirectly said stuff. You hint at it. You never said something that they're like, oh my goodness, if the FBI was listening in, I would be going to prison right now. And so it's always hinting at it. But in this instance, similar to the one I told you about with the computers, I wanted him to facilitate a very small thing. And then once I pitched him essentially on helping out, he was like, oh, I can do so much more than that in my position. Let me help you.
Did he have a severe, like, personal life vulnerability?
Yes.
Financially?
Not financially. He was extremely wealthy, but he had some other very nasty habits as well.
Like blackmailable type stuff?
Absolutely, yeah.
Did you utilize that?
No, because I didn't need to threaten him into, you know, I'm going to go behind your back and expose this if you don't help. He thought that being around me was going to facilitate him being able to indulge in his nasty habits more.
My imagination's running wild.
I don't want to get too specific because if you put all this together, it could be.
I could Google it.
Eventually, yeah. So.
Thank you guys for checking out this clip. If you haven't already subscribed, please subscribe and hit the like button on this video. It is a huge, huge help. And if you'd like to check out this clip's full podcast episode, that link is in the description below or right here. And finally, you can follow me on Instagram and X by using the links in my description below.